I think this is a good platform for people to start to know more about tennis. It's normal that without us having had that much success, at this level, there's a lot of tension when things are tight and when things are, you have a moment where nobody's talking and you can just hear the ball. I think it's a different experience. So I'm happy that Pinoys are now able to be exposed to that in person.
Alex Eala has just turned the Women's Tennis Association upside down with a stunning announcement. We are talking about a massive 7-figure endorsement agreement with Levi's, the legendary denim manufacturer, and candidly, this caught absolutely everyone off guard. At the tender age of 19, she is completely overhauling the blueprint for what a Southeast Asian athlete can achieve on the professional courts, and rewriting the expectations for future generations. Make no mistake, this headline is not simply about the paycheck or the zeros in the bank account. This is the vindication of a young woman from Manila who faced a chorus of voices telling her that her ambitions were sheer fantasy. Today, she stands squarely in the center of the global spotlight. The burning question on every analyst's mind is simple. Are we witnessing the dawn of a new dynasty? Or is this the crushing weight that finally breaks the dam? Alex Eala was never part of the script. She was born in Manila, raised in a nation where tennis barely registers on the sports radar. As a little girl, she studied icons like Serena Williams and Maria Sharapova through the static of a low-definition television set, dreaming of a world far away. While her peers fantasized about becoming the next great volleyball spiker or a basketball phenomenon, Alex gripped her tennis racket with a desperation that suggested it was the only thing keeping her afloat. Her parents recognized a spark in her, a fierce refusal to be ordinary. However, raw potential does not purchase plane tickets to Europe. It does not settle bills for elite coaching registration fees or the relentless financial drain of the international junior circuit. The sacrifices made by her family were absolute and total. Her father clocked in for exhausting double shifts, pushing his body to the limit to keep the dream alive. Her mother transformed into her business manager, her emotional rock, and her biggest cheerleader. They liquidated real estate assets. They took on significant debt. They did whatever it took. They wagered their entire livelihood on a vision that the vast majority of people in the Philippines dismissed as a complete impossibility. Because let us be real for a second, when was the last time you saw a headline about a Filipino tennis player cracking the code of the global tennis elite? The Philippines is a factory for basketball icons and boxing royalty, but tennis, that was perceived as a Western luxury, a pastime for the wealthy. Alex Eala was on a warpath to prove that the court belonged to her just as much as anyone else. At the age of 12, she made the heart-wrenching decision to leave home. She packed her bags for Spain to enroll at the Rafa Nadal Academy, arguably one of the most rigorous and prestigious training grounds on the planet. Try to visualize being a child thousands of miles separated from your support system, surrounded by peers speaking foreign tongues and flashing wealth you cannot comprehend. The isolation was suffocating. The expectations were relentless, heavy enough to flatten most adults. Yet Alex stood tall. She did not crumble. She hit the courts harder, dissecting the mechanics of tennis with the focus of an academic scholar. She internalized every lecture, every heartbreaking defeat, and every second of insecurity, repurposing that negativity into high-octane fuel. The junior tour transformed into her personal proving ground. Her efforts paid dividends when she snatched the Australian Open Girls Doubles Championship in 2020. She began rapidly ascending the ranking ladders. The coaching world began to whisper her name in hushed tones, and scouts were alerting their agencies. However, we must acknowledge the brutal reality of this sport. Success as a junior is not a golden ticket to a professional career. The canyon separating a top-tier junior prospect from a legitimate Women's Tennis Association contender is terrifyingly wide. That gap is filled with the ghosts of players who failed to transition, athletes who burned out physically, ran out of funding, or simply collapsed under the intense psychological warfare that defines the Pro Tour. Alex was acutely aware of these odds. She carried that burden every single morning because back in the Philippines, she was not merely an athlete. She had become a national symbol. She represented hope. She was the living evidence that a Filipino could stand toe-to-toe with giants on the international stage. That magnitude of pressure can shatter a person, but for the rare few, it forges them into steel. By the time she celebrated her 18th birthday, Alex had already experienced the grit of the WTA Tour. She had grinded through qualifying rounds, battled her way through the challenger circuit, and clawed her way into her first main draw brackets. Her scorecard was a mix of highs and lows, but the raw talent was impossible to ignore. She possessed the heavy ground strokes. She had the fighting spirit. She displayed the kind of tenacity that cannot be taught in a classroom. Gradually, without much fanfare at first, the global tennis community began to sit up and take notice. There is a pivotal moment in every athlete's career where hard work intersects with destiny. For Alex Eala, that window opened during the summer of 2024. She had not yet cracked the top 100 rankings. She had not lifted a major WTA trophy. Yet she possessed an asset that statistics cannot quantify: a compelling narrative. And in this modern era of digital sports marketing, a powerful story is the ultimate currency. Her breakthrough was not marked by a single specific match. It was a sequence of gritty performances that went viral across social platforms. We are talking about a 3-set resurrection in a challenger final where she fought off 4 championship points against her. It was a raw post-match press conference where she broke down in tears while describing the immense sacrifices her family endured to get her there. It was that iconic video clip of her celebrating a victory draped in the Philippine flag, her voice trembling as she sent a message of gratitude to her parents in Tagalog. While the tennis purists observed a talented technician, the rest of the world saw a warrior. Corporate sponsors began to circle the waters. Initially, it was smaller deals, local, Philippine enterprises, and regional brands hoping to align themselves with her skyrocketing popularity. But Alex and her management team remained disciplined and patient. They understood that locking in with the wrong partner too soon could cap her value and underestimate her future trajectory. They held the line. They focused on expanding her digital footprint. They curated a public image that was genuine, emotionally resonant, and impossible to scroll past. That is when the heavyweight offers began to land. Nike made inquiries. Adidas showed significant interest, yet the most unexpected proposal came from an unlikely source: Levi's. The legendary denim powerhouse, famous for its rebellious spirit and cultural impact, was scouting for a way to aggressively expand its market share in Asia. They were not in the market for just another tennis player to wear a patch on a sleeve. They needed a figure who personified resilience, realness, and the bravery to shatter stereotypes. They identified Alex Eala as that person. The contract talks were reportedly fierce. Levi's was not putting a standard athlete endorsement contract on the table. They were pitching a comprehensive multi-year alliance valued at over $1 million, positioning Alex as the frontrunner for their upcoming Built to Last campaign. The marketing strategy is straightforward yet profound, focusing on human beings who have conquered massive obstacles to reach the summit. Alex is set to headline global advertisements, high-fashion editorials, and exclusive digital series. She will be standing shoulder to shoulder with world-class musicians, avant-garde artists, and social activists in what promises to be a career-defining collaboration. This was far more than a standard sponsorship agreement. It was a calculated move for cultural positioning. However, this is precisely where the narrative becomes intricate. At the time, Alex was still struggling to cement her footing on the WTA tour of her world ranking, was fluctuating around 120, and she had not secured a victory in a main draw match for several months. Despite the lack of recent trophies, she was on the verge of becoming one of the most lucrative endorsers in women's tennis, among players ranked outside the top 50. The optics of the deal were undeniably tricky. Was the denim giant wagering on her future potential, or were they simply capitalizing on her marketability, fully aware that her story would resonate regardless of her scoreboard results? Alex's management team deliberated for weeks over the decision. Her coach cautioned her about the crushing weight of expectation, while her mother worried about the intense public scrutiny. Nevertheless, on January 15, 2026, the press release went live at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. The official Instagram account unveiled a cinematic video. The clip featured Alex Eala walking through the bustling streets of Manila, clad in a custom denim jacket. Her voiceover spoke about dreams, sacrifice, and the search for belonging. The caption was powerful. She is not just building a career, she is building a legacy. Welcome to the family, Alex Eala. Within hours, the post had garnered over 2 million views. Major sports outlets picked up the story, and ESPN even ran a special feature segment. The WTA tweeted their congratulations, and Filipino fans erupted in celebration. Hashtags like Pinoy Pride and Eala Rising began trending worldwide. For a fleeting euphoric moment, it felt like a victory lap. Unfortunately, the internet landscape is never that simple. By the afternoon, the backlash had already begun to brew. Tennis forums and message boards exploded with heated debate. Critics questioned why the brand had chosen Aya over established superstars like Coco Gauff, who held a Grand Slam title, or Ons Jabeur, who had reached multiple major finals. Comments flooded the feed. She has not even won a WTA match this year. This is nothing but marketing hype. She is getting paid for her Instagram following, not her tennis skills. Some of the harshest criticism originated from within the tennis community itself. Retired professionals and commentators openly questioned whether Aya was truly ready for this magnitude of exposure. One former top 10 player tweeted, "Endorsement deals should be earned on the court, not negotiated in a boardroom." The subtext was clear: Alex did not deserve this yet. But here is what the critics failed to grasp. The sponsor was not gambling on Alex's current ranking. They were investing in her sphere of influence. In an era where athletes function as brands and social media reach matters as much as trophies, Alex Aya possessed something rare: authenticity. Her story resonated with millions of people who had never picked up a tennis racket. She represented the underdog, the outsider, the fighter who refused to quit. The chief marketing officer defended the decision in an interview, stating, "We do not just sign champions. We sign changemakers." Alex Aya is redefining what it means to be a tennis player from Southeast Asia. That is a vision worth betting on. The statement was bold, it was polarizing, and it worked. The controversy only served to amplify the campaign's reach. Alex herself stayed mostly silent during the initial media storm. Her team released a brief statement thanking the sponsor and promising to let her tennis do the talking. But privately, she was struggling. In February 2026, Alex entered the Australian Open qualifying rounds, carrying more than just her tennis bag. She carried the expectations of an entire nation, the scrutiny of a skeptical tennis world, and the unspoken pressure of a brand deal that had turned her into a lightning rod for controversy. Her first match was a disaster. She lost in straight sets to a player ranked outside the top 200. The errors were unforced, and her body language looked completely defeated. After the match, she faced the media with red eyes and a forced smile. When asked about the deal, she replied, "I am just trying to focus on my game. The rest is noise," she said, but that noise was deafening. Social media erupted again. The critics who had questioned the deal now felt fully vindicated. "We told you she was not ready. All hype, no substance. The brand should ask for a refund." The comments were cruel, relentless, and deeply personal. Filipino fans rushed to her defense, but even they were beginning to worry. Was the deal too much, too soon? Had Alex bitten off more than she could chew? Behind the scenes, the pressure was crushing. Alex stopped sleeping properly. She replayed every mistake in her head. Her coach tried to shield her from the media frenzy, but it was impossible. Every interview question circled back to the same topic. Was she living up to the hype? The joy she once felt on court began to fade, replaced by anxiety and self-doubt. To their credit, the brand stood by her. They released a follow-up campaign video showing Alex training in the early morning hours, sweat dripping, determination etched on her face. The tagline read, "Legends aren't built in a day." It was a message of patience, of faith, of resilience, but even that sparked debate. Was the brand enabling her failures, or were they genuinely committed to the long game? What made it worse was the constant comparison game. Every time Coco Gauff won a match, the comments flooded in. "This is what a real star looks like." When Iga Swiatek dominated a tournament, the subtext was clear. She earned her endorsements. Alex became the punching bag for every frustration about modern sports marketing, about influencer culture, about the perceived decline of meritocracy in tennis. But here is the aspect of the story that most people did not see. Alex was not just fighting opponents on the court. She was fighting a mental battle that threatened to destroy her. The girl who once played with fearless abandon was now paralyzed by fear. The paralyzing dread of failure, the crushing anxiety of public embarrassment, and the terrifying thought of proving her harshest critics correct were constant companions. We watched as her world ranking went into a freefall. Her self-belief completely disintegrated, and for the first time since she was a 12-year-old prodigy, Alex Aya seriously contemplated hanging up her racket for good. It reached a breaking point when her mother discovered her sobbing uncontrollably in a lonely hotel room following a particularly devastating defeat. That night, Alex uttered a sentence that would eventually become the foundation for the next chapter of her career. She whispered, "Maybe they are right. Maybe I do not deserve this." But fast forward to March of 2026, and we saw a different Alex Aya step onto the hard courts in Miami for a WTA 125 event. There were no television cameras, no media circus, and absolutely no hype. Just the player. Her gear in a stark binary choice: she could either crumble under the suffocating pressure or find a way to rise above it. The turnaround began slowly. She ground out a victory in her opening match in 3 tough sets, followed by a win in the second round. By the time she reached the semifinals, the tennis world was finally starting to pay attention to the scorelines again. And the buzz wasn't about her Levi's sponsorship or the online controversies. It was because she was striking the ball with the ferocity of the Alex Eala, who had dominated the junior Grand Slams years ago. She looked fearless, aggressive, and mentally unbreakable. She went on to lift the trophy, securing her very first professional title in a moment of pure vindication. However, the post-match celebration was notably subdued, quiet, and almost private in its nature. There were no bombastic victory speeches and no social media storms. It was just a simple, understated post on Instagram, featuring a photo of her clutching the trophy with a caption that read, "For everyone who believed, and for everyone who did not." That message resonated deeply. The entire tennis community sat up and took notice, while respected analysts and commentators began to reevaluate their stance on her potential. Even the legendary Martina Navratilova took to social media to tweet, "This is what resilience looks like, respect." It was a turning point where even her most vocal detractors had to soften their tone. Yet Alex did not let herself get comfortable in this redemption arc. She kept her head down, stayed focused, and went right back to work on the practice courts. During her first interview after the victory, reporters immediately pressed her about the Levi's deal and the previous backlash. Her response was calm, measured, but incredibly powerful. She stated, "I have learned that people will always have their opinions, but at the end of the day, I am the one who has to live with my choices and my life. I signed that partnership deal because I truly believed in what it represented and the message it sent. It was not just for me, but for every athlete who comes from a place where they are constantly told they do not belong. I am not here to prove anyone wrong. I am here to prove myself right." That quote instantly went viral across platforms, not because it was rebellious, but because it was undeniably honest. It showcased the exact kind of raw authenticity that major brands like Levi's had bet on, reminding the entire world exactly why she had been selected for the campaign in the first place. However, the most significant transformation was happening behind closed doors. Alex began working intensively with a sports psychologist who helped her separate her self-worth from her match results. She successfully rebuilt her relationship with the sport, rediscovering the joy and passion that made her fall in love with tennis as a child. She completely stopped reading the toxic comment sections. She stopped trying to micromanage the public narrative. She simply played the game. By the summer of 2026, Alex had cracked the top 100 rankings. She captured another title and pushed top 20 players to their limits in grueling 3-set battles. Her gameplay evolved significantly. It became more calculated, more mature, and infinitely more dangerous for her opponents. Levi's released a fresh campaign, highlighting her comeback journey, and this time, the public reception was overwhelmingly positive. The narrative had completely flipped. She was no longer viewed as an overhyped marketing product. She was recognized as a fighter who had earned her spot on the tour. Through it all, her fans in the Philippines never wavered. They had maintained their belief in her potential, even during the moments when she didn't believe in herself. Now, as she continued her ascent, she transformed into something more than just a tennis player. She became a potent symbol of resilience, of unwavering faith, and of the power found in refusing to quit when the world insists you are not good enough. As of January 2027, Alex Eala sits at a world ranking of 73. She may not be a Grand Slam champion just yet. She hasn't reached a major final, but she has achieved something that is arguably far more important. She has fundamentally changed the conversation in the sport. Before Alex emerged, the concept of a Filipino tennis player securing a $1 million global endorsement deal seemed like an impossible fantasy. Today, it is a reality. And that reality has kicked open doors for an entire generation of aspiring athletes across Southeast Asia. Young players from the Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand are looking at Alex's journey and thinking, maybe I can achieve this too. Tennis academies throughout Manila are reportedly overflowing with young kids who dream of becoming the next Alex Eala. Parents who once dismissed tennis as an impractical, expensive dream are now investing in lessons, funding, travel, and nurturing belief. This is the massive ripple effect of true representation. This is precisely why her commercial deal mattered far beyond the financial figures. But let's be honest, the pressure has not simply vanished. Every single tournament she enters still carries the heavy weight of national expectation. Every sponsorship appearance still invites intense scrutiny. Alex is currently learning to navigate a complex world where she exists as both a competitive athlete and a global brand. It is a world where her value is measured not just in ranking points but in her cultural impact. It is a precarious tightrope walk that very few athletes ever truly master. Some thrive under that spotlight while others burn out completely. The burning question now is what kind of career trajectory awaits Alex Eala? Will she evolve into a legitimate Grand Slam contender justifying every bit of the hype? Or will she settle into a respectable career as a top 50 player who is remembered more for what she represented than the trophies she won? And honestly, we have to ask ourselves, does that distinction even matter? Because here is the truth that her critics still fail to comprehend: Alex Eala has already won. She won not on the scoreboard, but in the way she forced the tennis establishment to expand its narrow definition of what a superstar looks like. She proved that you do not have to come from Europe or North America to deserve global recognition. She proved that marketability is about far more than just Grand Slam titles. It is fundamentally about forging a deep human connection, crafting a compelling narrative, and showcasing unyielding resilience. Levi's placed a significant wager on her, fully aware of the reality that a Wimbledon title might never actually grace her trophy cabinet. The denim giant doubled down on her specifically because her personal path struck a powerful chord with millions across the globe, anyone who has ever felt marginalized or looked at as an underdog in their own field. Looking at the results, that bold gamble has already delivered massive returns. The Built-to-Last marketing initiative transformed into one of the company's most triumphant and high-performing campaigns throughout the entire Asian market. Retail numbers skyrocketed, and positive brand perception hit new heights. Alex evolved beyond being a mere ambassador for a clothing line. She effectively became the figurehead of a cultural movement. Turning the focus back to the player, Alex is very much in the process of drafting her own history. She remains in the trenches, fighting for every point, climbing the rankings, and constantly proving her rightful place on the world tour. Her presence serves as a loud declaration that the traditional hierarchy of tennis is shifting, that global representation is critical for the sport's future, and that often the most courageous act an athlete can commit is simply betting on their own potential, even when the rest of the world insists they are not prepared. Was this strategy fraught with risk? 100%. Was it a controversial move at the time? There is no doubt about it. But when we look back now, was it worth all the trouble? Just put that question to the thousands of aspiring Filipino athletes who now genuinely believe they have a fighting chance on the global stage. Or ask the major corporate sponsors who are now actively scouting for talent in regions they previously overlooked entirely. Better yet, ask Alex, the woman who transformed her darkest moments of self-doubt into high-octane fuel for an incredible career resurgence. This exemplifies the raw power of resilience and the absolute beauty of simply refusing to give up.